So right now I'm holding in my hand 3 bills with a total face value of $1,500. Now how's that possible? Well, I'm holding $500 bills. My name's Christian from Treasurytown, and today we're going to be talking about one of the types of bills, the denominations that is far greater than $100, and taking a look at the history behind the $500 bills. The ones in my hand are from 1934. That was the last time that the $500 bill was made. They've since been discontinued, probably because of things like money laundering and also the fact that we can do so much electronically these days. But for a full history, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of the $500 bill and take a look at some of the people that were featured on them, some of the values, some special facts about each note. So I can't wait to get to that part of the video. Let's go to the presentation. All right, so here are the first notes that we're going to be talking about, but one thing that I do want to mention, the first 3 slides, they're notes that are super rare and they have really high values, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but the first ones are these 1861 and 1865 $500 interest-bearing Treasury notes. They are promising 7.3% returns on the $500, so they were often exchanged right back. It wouldn't really make sense to hold onto these because they were increasing at such a high rate that their value was a lot more than the $500 that the face value. So again, not too many of these are around today. Most of them are pretty much unique. And that's similar. Those feature Washington and Hamilton. The next one is this legal tender note, but that also accrued interest at 7.3%. It had Albert Gallatin, who's maybe the smallest known person on the bills ever featured. He's the Secretary of the Treasury under Thomas Jefferson. This one, again, also super valuable. And then next up, we have these legal tender notes from 1874, 75, 78, and 80. They're very similar, each of them, and they have a really gorgeous back that I did want to show off to you guys. And it shows victory, an emblem of victory, and then General Joseph King Mansfield. He was killed at Antietam. There were people firing into some woods. The people, he thought that they were doing friendly fire, but it turns out that they were not, and he was shot by the group of Confederate soldiers in the woods. So he's honored on this note, but there's only 40 of these notes surviving. I looked really hard for auction records, couldn't really find any, but they're very valuable, and there's so many different varieties because they span 4 years. There's different signatures, that sort of thing. So that concludes the old note recap. Let's get into the ones that are more familiar. So first up, we have this 1882 $500 gold certificate, and you're probably thinking, hey, he's not supposed to be on the $500 bill. Well, Abraham Lincoln did make it onto the gold certificates from 1882, as well as one later, but this is the oldest large-size $500 bills that is considered relatively affordable, and when we get into relatively affordable, it's still quite a high price, but like many of the older ones, the value of the note is going to depend heavily on what signatures are present on the bill. So there's 7 different varieties, I believe, on this one, and some of those signatures are going to bring the bill from being worth about $10,000 to hundreds of thousands. So there's one with, instead of having this red seal right here, the red seal was really large and it was spiked, and that brought $1.41 million. And the other listings are ranging from about, for this type of note where it's not rare signatures, about $7,500 to $20,000. And a second, like a runner-up in terms of rarity, I saw sold for about $200,000. So there's, as you can see, a huge range in terms of what you might have if you have one of these 1882 ones. I'll show you the back of the bill. Also looks pretty neat. They're supposed to be really gorgeous in person, especially. We have to fast forward quite a while to see the next one, and that's this 1918 $500 Federal Reserve note with Chief Justice, he was the 4th Chief Justice, I think, John Marshall. And this note is considered another one that's really rare but actually attainable. Prices are going to be similar. And the back shows, I'll show it right now, DeSoto discovering the Mississippi, also a really gorgeous vignette. But the note in front of us, there are certain ones that are going to be rarer, and that mostly deals with where it's from. This one, it says from Cleveland, but there's some in Minnesota. There was one that I saw that was in really terrible shape. It's the only one from Minnesota, and it sold for $126,500. Now, the better condition, slightly rarer ones are in the range of 50,000, and then a regular one that's in, that's been pretty circulated thoroughly and not from a rare place, that's going to be about a $8,000, $9,000 note. In terms of the next note, we've got back to this 1922 $500 gold certificate. Obviously, there's a few small changes to the design, but they're very, very similar in terms of their outward appearance. It's the last large size $500 note made by the United States, and it's pretty collectible, but a lot more affordable than the 1882 counterpart. And there's no varieties on the issue, so all of the signatures are going to be the same. Down here you can see it's Spielman and White, and so it really depends on the condition in terms of how much the notes are going to sell for. There's also no low serial numbers, or there's not many of them. There's no star notes, so again, all on the eye appeal, and it bears the same reverse as the 1882. In terms of the price, the heavily circulated notes are going to be about $5,000, and then they're a lot more common, obviously, than the heavily circulated ones from 1882. And then the nicest example known, which was graded and about uncirculated 58 and was noted for having really good color, that one sold for $103,500. 1928, we see the last $500 gold certificate out there, and it marks the beginning of the transition over to the modern-looking $500 bill with William McKinley on the obverse, who was killed only 6 months into his second presidential term. I believe he was the 25th president. Don't quote me on that, though. And 1928 was actually the last year that the United States was issuing these gold certificates. So 420,000 of these were printed with no real varieties. And so again, there's no star notes. There's not really any variance in the signatures. Woods and Mellon were the ones that were signing these ones. And the serial numbers that are considered 100 and lower, those will get more of a premium at auction. The value on these starts at about $2,500 and climbed all the way to $149,500 when it appeared in gem uncirculated 66 condition. But again, we're talking about conditional rarity, not anything in terms of the signatures. In 1928, there were also these $500 notes, but these are not considered gold certificates. There's a curious thing about them. They're called Federal Reserve notes. And the interesting thing about these is that they're says on them redeemable in gold on demand at the United States Treasury or in gold or lawful money at any Federal Reserve bank, though they're not a gold certificate. So what that means, I don't really know, but there's different factors in terms of where the district that issues it is. They include Philadelphia, New York, Richmond, St. Louis, and more, but Boston is going to be the scarcest of those. Non-problem notes in heavily circulated condition sell for about $700. Better condition ones from tougher districts in the about uncirculated range can be up to $5,000, and the finest known is a superb gem uncirculated 68 that sold for $17,250 in 2010. So there's not the insane range that there are on some of the other ones, though there are a tiny number of star notes that will be the most expensive, and those sell for between $40,000 and $100,000. So that's where the money is. It's not in really uncirculated non-star notes. Lastly, we get to the 1934 or 1934A $500 Federal Reserve note. Still has McKinley. There's a few differences on them. But unlike the 1928 one, the 1934 or 34A didn't have any redeemability for the gold. And they came in two varieties, one with light green seals, that's on the 34, not the 34As, and one with darker green seals. The light green seals sell for about 10% more. And a serial number on either of these under 100 will be pretty good. And the average 34 will be worth between $700 to $750. And on the 34 regular, it climbed to about $23,500 for a superb gem new 68, while the star notes start about $2,000 and go up to $30,000. That value is the same on the 34As in terms of the star notes, but the superb gem Unc 67 exceptional paper quality, I know the grading is kind of challenging, on the 34A didn't eclipse $10,000. It was in the $9,000 range. So that brings us to a conclusion on these notes. There's a lot of cool history behind them. Should we make $500 notes these days? I could see a case for it. Be interested in what you guys think. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to get in touch with me, do so on my website, treasuretownYT.com, my Instagram, TreasureTownYT, or my Facebook, Treasure Town. I've got links in the description, and I'll see you on some of my other videos.